Okay, we're going to start right now.
Yes.
Okay.
So I am not sure about your university, but on our end, currently, a lot of students are using AI tools for design.
Yeah.
So, for example, in the
Okay.
past, like students might spend a lot of time to produce before and after images for their urban design studios. But now students can easily use AI tool to generate, an image by using AI tool as the after image. So that creates actually more time for students to do research before they um, do their design. Because, design part becomes less time consuming with, the support of AI tools. So currently we encourage students to do more research, more field work. So that's why I think knowing, the kind of method used in urban design research is becoming more important. So that's why I choose to focus on this topic today, key methods
Okay.
in urban design research.
Okay, Professor. Let me opening this class. Maybe I want to introduce you. Maybe the participant is different. Maybe some student for this morning.
Okay.
Okay, I opening just a minute. Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Professor Lu and fellow student and participant. Welcome back to the second and final installment of our guest lecture series. Following our insightful session on Wednesday, we were once again joined with Professor Duanfang Lu. And beyond her architectural expertise, Professor Lu is distinguished researcher who examined the excesses of global migrants and social reaction to rapid urbanization. Her work emphasizes in rapidly changing world our study methods must be reposed to remain relevant. So to the session, key methods in urban design research is vital for your growth as a student, as future architects and researchers. So the student, please text your comment, your asking in comment box, and maybe in 1 hour average, Professor Lu will answer your question. So please, time is your, Professor Lu.
Thank you. So I'd like to start my lecture now. Key methods in urban design research. So the first question I think you might ask is why urban design require research. Of course, in architecture design studio, maybe you need, some research into the previous projects, similar projects, but you probably wouldn't be doing, serious research like, the conventional social science research. But in urban design, because we're dealing with cities, which are very complicated systems shaped by different elements such as social behavior, economic factors, cultural infrastructure, ecological system, politics, climate, and technology, and of course, history and culture. So it's very important to do solid research before you come to the design propositions. And because urban design operates at different scales from, the details levels such as textual materiality to street facade interface, to landscape and to the neighborhood scale, for example, the height of buildings and density of buildings to urban structure. And also, without research, urban design risks becoming superficial and not very convincing, especially in the local setting, because, for example, in developing countries, the social conditions are very different from developed countries. So, for example, if you are using AI tool to generate the after image for your urban design, the AI tools might be using elements from developed societies for your after image of urban design. But that's something AI tools can easily done. But what AI tools cannot do is how to make sure these newly introduced urban design elements can be suitable in that local setting, in that particular place. So without doing research, you just artificially introduce some, for example, street furniture or certain transport regulations into the area. The result could be not very suitable for local communities. And also, in early days, like a lot of time have been spending on, artistic intuition or formal compositions. But nowadays, because that part can be easily done by AI tools, so, the AI tools might generate 100 different propositions in 1 minute. And what should you do to choose the best solution for that particular place? So research will enable urban designers to move beyond the intuition, the creative side. Actually, now part of the creative process can be easily done by AI tools, but in terms of evidence-based understanding and informed decision-making, you still need a person, a human to be there, a human who knows the context very well. And you should rely your design on, some original, like first-hand data you collect from that local setting. And also, research can prevent some repetition of failure in the local setting. So you could, do some research in terms of some successful and unsuccessful examples of urban design from your local context. And then the research will help you to understand, why certain projects fail in that particular area and what strategies might succeed. And certainly, urban design research can also produce evidence-based design that informed by observation, measurement, evaluation. So you actually put your body in that particular setting and talk with people instead of simply copy elements from other societies to do your design. And certainly, it also improves public accountability because if your design is backed by solid research, then you can justify why public funding should spend on this particular design proposition. And if there's any, environmental consequences, if your design has been backed by environmental research that can help to justify your design. So certainly, in comparison to the conventional social science research, there are some special features of urban design research in terms of objectives, outputs, ways of thinking, forms of evidence, and relationships to practice. So, of course, urban design research is closely linked to practice because it's usually project-based, intervention orientated. So unlike the usual social science research, which the outcome might be a research paper or a book, when you're doing urban design research, you like to use that to support your design proposition, and which might eventually become something that can use, for example, master plans, spatial strategies, vision statement for the local government design framework, etc. So, for example, if you do a study on heat islands, you might want to, come up with propositions on new tree canopy strategies, redesign streets, shading systems, etc. And also, very importantly, urban design research is spatial. So you ask how space is organized, and how do people move through space? How does urban form shape behaviors? And how should space be redesigned in order to create better quality of life for local people and visitors? And also, urban design research often do research by design. So in the process of producing drawings, diagrams, you use the process of creating these visual materials to further improve your thinking in terms of the best strategies for that particular place. And yeah, you always use the visual means such as maps, diagrams, spatial modeling, renderings, sections, GIS visualizations to not only communicate your ideas, but also as a way to structure your thinking and use the visual data to do analysis to reach certain findings. So, for example, these analysis of residential typologies in local neighborhood will help the designers to understand the character and culture of the built environment. So understand these existing characteristics could help to define, the existing sense of place and what could be applied to the local neighborhood has to be based on the research of existing built environment. And urban design research also deals with future scenarios. So unlike social science research, usually you don't need to deal with the future, you deal with what happened. But urban design research often study possibilities, projections, visions. So the research is very much future orientated that, differentiate urban design research from other conventional research. And for example, you usually need to base your development of the vision statement on a range of careful studies on the local environment, local culture. So to reach a most suitable vision for that particular place. This is just one example. And urban design research also is based on diversity of evidence. So you might include spatial performance, environmental simulation, behavioral observations, etc., to reach the best strategy for the redesigning of the place. So here is a summary of, the differences between urban design research and conventional social science. So in terms of main goal, urban design focus on understanding and transforming space. In terms of output, you produce design propositions rather than just explanations of a phenomenon. And in terms of orientations, urban design focus on the future. And in terms of core media, it's usually spatial and visual. In terms of key methods, of course, there are a lot of overlappings in the area, but a lot of times urban designers will focus a bit more on mapping and simulation. In terms of relation to practice, urban design research is often directly applied. And in terms of treatment of space, the spatial dimension is central for urban design research. And for research process, urban design research would be design-based. So there are a few key methods in urban design research. So basically, I list a few here, but obviously there will be more methods than what I list here. So let's move to each of these methods. For example, in terms of spatial analysis methods, urban morphology analysis, it's quite essential for urban design. So usually you study, you start your research with the physical form of cities or neighborhood. You study, for example, the size of the blocks, building typologies, as we just mentioned, and density. So in this case, students measure the size of each block, and that become a base to define the existing urban grid. So key question here is, how does urban form evolve? What kinds of street networks support workability? And how do block influence social interaction? So basically, if you have denser street networks, that means it provides better feasibility for walkers. And if you have a huge block, which is not permeable for pedestrians. So all these characters are very important for you to think about new strategies to increase workability in the local area. So in terms of conventional tools in this area, you might use figure ground drawings, GIS mapping, and typological classifications. For example, this is a photo taken in Spain. So this is a very, super broad kind of urban morphology. It means, certain forms of transport, certain forms of interaction can happen in this particular social form, urban form. So a lot of researchers have studied morphological characters at different level. In this case, it's about relationship between public space and the how the different forms of enclosure can influence that the character of that particular square. And in the book, A Theory of Good City Form, Cameron Lynch consider good city form should be sensible, well fitted, accessible, and well controlled. So as you can see, in different cities, the urban morphology is completely different, which actually shape this particular morphology is an essential indicator in terms of how the city is organized and the way people transport walk through the city. The experience could be very different. And certainly space syntax is a very particular way to analyze how different forms means different level of connectivity and accessibility. And by doing, relatively scientific ways of, calculating or, analyzing different ways of connecting different points in the urban environment, you can reach the best strategy to, decide, whether how you organize, for example, the entering points of a new shopping mall. And Bill Hillier is a founder of this particular methodology, and a lot of research has been done, and certainly there is a lot of like data-based research that produce relatively reliable findings. So, for example, you can decide you want to collect the number of pedestrians passing that particular street at particular point of the day, and then based on that data, you can easily reaching some conclusion in terms of pedestrian movement patterns on that street. And then depending on where you have better pedestrian flows, you might be able to reach the best strategy in terms of placing, for example, a good public space, a new park, for example, in the area, or a new business in the area. So by using that sort of rigorous analysis, you might be able to help with your transit-oriented development, because based on qualifiable data, you can easily determine how the new stations should be connected with existing urban space. But sometimes this could be overly deterministic because the pedestrian flows might be changed dramatically by having a new spatial element in space, and whether the analysis of existing pedestrian flows can determine the organization of the new flows. That's something, still questionable. And the next key method is behavioral method. So it's also a very classical method in urban design research. So you map how people behavior in space through systematic observation. And you might record like where people sit, walk, gather, and play. So you can use different technique to do that. So time-lapse observation is a very classical one, and GPS checking, and nowadays with the availability of big data, some researchers have been using big data to do this as well. But earlier, William White has been a key researcher in developing this particular method. So there are a range of insights generated through this method. So you can easily determine, what elements attract people to come to a particular place, such as, seating, such as food. So William White, for example, in his book, The Social Life of Small Urban Spaces, has been using this particular method to reach some very interesting findings. For example, he found that street is a river of life in the city, and people might be attracted to a particular place by other people, by good place to sit. For example, shaded seating could be a very attractive element. And people like food as well. And in recent decades, of course, pedestrian and mobility studies have further developed after William White's study. So there are a lot of, scientific analysis in terms of walking behavior, cycling, public transport. So you might use, pedestrian counts at certain time of the day, travel diaries. You might also use mobile checking, for example, by using mobile phone data. And you can use this particular method to answer, a range of questions. For example, micromobility, accessibility problem, or walkability analysis. So in developing countries, for example, informal transport system might need, slightly different strategy to evaluate. And other activities such as street vending, motorcycle mobility, you might need to be a bit more creative in order to take these informal patterns of urban activities into account. And another important method in urban design research is perceptual and experiential mapping. So Kevin Lynch has been a very important figure in this area, whose book, the image of the city, analyze how people draw city from memory, and identify a few key elements that help people to develop their own cognitive mapping of the city. And the purpose is to understand cognitive experience of the city. So it's not, the physical environment, but the environment as constructed in people's minds. So you might use that sort of findings for urban wayfinding, heritage identity, and neighborhood attachment study. And you might also look into the more vague aspect of the place, such as the urban atmosphere. You like to not just, look at the maps, but look at the actual experience people have in that particular space. So it's very important to visit the place and maybe at different time because there might be different atmospheres during different time of the day. So by doing your fieldwork, doing your direct observations, you might be able to have a more accurate understanding of the sense of place. So you might use sensory ethnography or narrative recording to aid your observations of the place. So sound, smell, and emotional attachment to a place are all very important dimensions of the study of the place. So in recent decades, it's very important to take environmental and ecological elements into account. So especially when you're dealing with issues such as heat islands, you like to use some scientific methods to determine, how serious the heat island phenomenon is in a city, and you might like to, justify your new strategies based on rigorous study of the existing conditions. For example, when you have the proposition to add more trees in a neighborhood, then people might ask why we should do that. And for example, you could use thermal imaging to decide when a neighborhood doesn't have that many trees, the temperature can be much higher than in comparison to another neighborhood with a lot of trees. So by doing your microclimate evaluation, you might justify your proposal of, planting more trees in the area. So, of course, soil access analysis could be quite important to determine, for example, the allowed height in a certain urban area. And if, as an urban designer, you propose to increase the density and height limit in the area, then you have to do the analysis in order to demonstrate, for example, the change in the policy wouldn't affect to many people in the area. And social, cultural, and ethnographical method is also quite important in urban design research because essentially we are dealing with not just the physical environment, but also dealing with the actual everyday life of people. So participant observation, interviews, field diaries are all very efficient methods to reach a good understanding of the urban life. So urban ethnography, borrowed from anthropologists, could be really helpful. So unlike, just doing interviews, if you can immerse yourself in the local setting as part of the community, you observe street culture as part of the community, you will be able to understand better in terms of the local culture, in terms of how locals see, for example, their night markets. And certainly the conventional sociological methods such as interviews and survey are still very important for urban design research. Of course, the sample size might not be large enough because you might not have, a lot of funding for your urban design research, but doing interviews can still be very helpful to understand local people's perspectives. And you can use focal groups to do your research as well by inviting some key stakeholders to your workshop to understand the diverse perspectives from the community. So to understand, for example, the actual use of space, you might want to do the survey of the local shops. And you can base your urban design strategy on the actual use of space rather than just the zoning from the council. Historical methods are quite important as well, because if you understand how urban forms developed over time in that area, then you might be able to understand better, how the urban form might further evolve from this time on. And you can also use historical methods as a way to identify the local cultural identity and the practices that have been successful or unsuccessful in the past. And in recent decades, digital and data-driven methods have become more and more important. So, for example, GIS, the conventional method used in urban design research, can allow spatial analysis of land use, density, accessibility, and demographic implications. So you can use mapping produced through GIS data to analyze spatial inequality. And you can also have powerful visualization that can justify your design proposition to both the local government and the local community. So with the development of big data and AI tools in recent years, um, it's actually important it's become easier to do very large scale analysis and dealing with very complicated data. So for example, if you use the social media discourse as base for your design, and you can easily use AI tool to do some analysis to identify, for example, what are the uh, desirable elements in urban atmosphere for the local communities. So if you are a renter, you might consider certain elements are more important than other elements in your house search. And if you are a housing buyer, you might, have some other priorities. So by using the um, social media data, online suburb reviews data, you might be able to reach certain concurrence in terms of, what are considered as the more desirable qualities in local people's housing search. And that can help planners and urban designers to focus on, the development of new spatial elements in different neighborhoods. And for TOD development, the real-time urban analysis can also help to determine, which staging areas work better than some other staging areas. So participatory and co-design methods are also considered as, a very good method to enable local community members to be active contributors to the urban design process. So you might use workshops, community mapping, co-design sessions to allow, common people to have their say in the design process. So here is a summary of the mixed methods you might use to study a certain topic. In this case, for example, we study urban atmosphere around railway station areas in Sydney. So it's very common to use a range of methods in your urban design study of a particular project. So you might use GIS mapping to illustrate density land use. You might use behavior mapping to understand pedestrian activity, and you might also use interviews to understand residents' perceptions. AI and narrative analyze to understand, how digital representation could contribute to the understanding of the particular atmosphere in a certain staging area. And you might use historical mapping to understand transformation over time, how, different type of shops emerge over time in that particular staging area. And you might use sensory works to understand the atmospheric elements in the area. Okay, so I finished my lecture now.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor. We have
So we still have
some
like 10 minutes for
yes
questions
for
and
quiz.
answers.
Okay. Maybe I first use the time to ask to you, Professor.
Yeah.
We know that some urban design studies may not applicable to a particular period, region, or set of circumstance, but why the local authorities or urban government in modern countries should utilize the finding of urban design research to formulate all urban related policies. Maybe you can provide some practical examples, or what do you think? What the reason why the local authorities reluctant to utilize urban design research to formulate the urban policies?
So, yeah, I'm not sure about um yeah, in the Indonesia setting, but I believe like all these methods I discussed in my lecture are becoming quite conventional, um, you know, information sources that, urban designers or planners used in their, proposal. So, um, could you let me know if um, students are already been using these methods in their studios?
Yes, maybe Prof. Jenny can explain to you
Yeah,
some
actually there
methods.
is yeah, actually there is no urban design studio in the course, but
Oh,
um
okay.
yeah, but they do research. Yeah, they do research. So some of them we already applied it, yeah, in the study, like for example, behavior mapping and then the study of perception, etc. Yeah,
Yes,
but it's not
that's great.
a comprehensive way to
Uh-huh.
deal with the what is it district, for example. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
because
Mhm.
Yeah.
there is no urban design studio in our course. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Bachelor,
Yeah.
bachelor course.
Yeah, because in my last lecture, I talk about, the ethical reasoning um, in urban design. I kind of feel like a lot of the ethical reasoning need to be based on research, your own research, because like a lot of times, like students might use, for example, um, like certain elements from other places for the urban design. But I feel like, um, it's very important to do your own research in the local setting to determine, whether, certain urban design elements can be, successfully transplanted in the local setting, or, um, if that, borrowing of foreign elements it's ethical in the local setting, I think you should do your own research in order to reach the best solution for the local communities. So, so I guess that's the reason I feel, a summary of these different, research tools could be useful in terms of how to implement, ethical reasoning in urban design.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's right. Because the challenge is because there are so what is it? AI will, is used intensively. Yeah,
Yes,
so yeah, sometimes students just depend on the internet and then the AI. Yeah, that's
yeah,
very challenging. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So as I said, it's important to encourage students to do their own field research
Yeah.
and provide, the support for them, in terms of how to do the research and how to um, produce their own findings and
Mhm.
and propose new design strategies based on evidence and new knowledge they produce.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then it's
Okay.
your lecture is very important because you already summarize all methods. I mean that the key methods. So uh, maybe students can what is it choose between them. Yeah,
Yeah,
according to their purpose.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. Yes, of course,
Okay.
like, there are a lot of specific techniques I cannot cover in this
Yeah.
lecture. For example, how to
Mm-hmm.
use Google Earth data. So
Mm-hmm.
how to use, local statistical data for your analysis. But I feel, once you have, a big picture in terms of, what methods are available to you, then you can, do your deeper research into certain method before you decide you like to use that particular method for your research. So hopefully, because nowadays a lot of, online learning material is available to you, so you can easily use those online sources for further study. And this lecture is just a brief introduction to the most essential methods in urban design research. Yeah. And certainly Jenny is a long-term researcher in
Yeah.
urban design research. So I hope following my lecture, you can discuss your um, questions with Jenny. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Okay, for student in a limit time, maybe one question for student from
Yeah.
student.
Yeah.
Okay, please,
One quick
student, maybe
question.
you type or you raise hand. Okay, we have a limited time. The professor has a symposium today, so maybe the student can ask him with raise hand or type the question in the chat room. Okay.
Yeah, I wonder, yeah, if you can share with me, like, student work that has been produced in the past,
Yes.
so I know like the differences between your student work and our student work.
Yes. Maybe next time, but we have a
Okay.
limited time to you to
Yeah, because
say.
like I guess students care a lot about, the assessments. Like
Mm-hmm.
they like
Mm-hmm.
to, work to the best according to the assessment criteria. So
So,
maybe,
for your information,
yeah.
for your information, Professor, we have two course in Principle of Urban Design. This semester is part one. Part one is to introduce the urban element or how to indicate the city, the urban life, and so on. And the part two is about the place, making place, making place making and process to participate in social and so on. So this semester, the student have the assessment to some cities, some corridors in our cities.
Okay.
Mhm, mhm. So,
Yeah,
Professor, thank you very much.
yeah,
Mhm.
thank you for
Thank you
your
very much
invitation.
for your valuable and
Yeah.
inspiring lecture for your material. I know you have a limited time for your symposium today. With your permission, maybe would you like to kindly ask whether the lecture materials or presentation slides could be shared with the participants so the student maybe can very helpful to reflect and discuss this topic to choose the methods that available or suitable for them. Thank you, Professor.
Well, I cannot share the slides because uh some of the slides have copyright material which I
Oh,
cannot share. So yeah, but yeah, you can definitely use the transcription for uh further reflection. Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Maybe for the closing, Prof. Jenny.
Uh, Mungkin Pak Subhan ini mahasiswa masih stay for question and answer. So,
Mhm.
yeah, we will continue the class.
Okay.
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 Yeah.
Okay, thank you,
So
Professor.
yeah, thank you
Before
for
before
joining
anu,
my
we
lecture
want
today,
to
and have a good day.
no, Professor, can you have a minute time? We take a picture, all of student
Okay,
with all
sure.
of student. Maybe all of
Mhm.
student can on the camera. All of you student, please. Okay, we have a limited time. Sorry.
Mhm.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, one layer. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. The second layer. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Professor.
you.
Hope you enjoy
Bye.
today.
Thank you very much,
Bye.
Duanfang. Bye.
Bye.
Oke, silakan Prof. Jenny. Mungkin ada yang mau
Iya,
disampaikan.
mungkin ada yang akan ditanyakan dari apa yang disampaikan oleh Prof. Duanfang. Ya, jadi mungkin perbedaannya kita bisa tahu kalau di sana itu semuanya berbasis kepada research. Ya, jadi baik itu kita mengkaji atau kita akan mendesain suatu kawasan, mendesain koridor jalan dan sebagainya selalu didahului dengan research. Itu sebabnya ketika kemudian jadi gitu ya dilaksanakan itu sesuai dengan apa namanya kebutuhan dari masyarakatnya. Nah, di kita karena kebetulan kita kalau di University of Sydney itu di arsitektur kan tetap ada urban design studionya. Jadi studio desain arsitekturnya, kemudian studio bagaimana bangunan-bangunan itu ditata di dalam kota dan sebagainya, itu ada studionya. Nah, karena di kita tidak ada studionya, maka kalian kan mencoba menganalisis ya dari tugasnya. Nah, barangkali apa yang disampaikan ini metode-metodenya bisa kalian gunakan di dalam kalian melakukan kajian ya. Di dalam melakukan kajian di kedepannya, misalnya nanti deskripsinya dan sebagainya, kalian bisa mencoba mengambil beberapa bagian ya. Jadi tidak harus seluruhnya karena yang tadi itu metodenya banyak, tetapi mereka kan biasanya mendesain satu kawasan, satu koridor jalan, satu distrik dan sebagainya. Nah, sementara kalian mungkin bisa menyumbang salah satu bagiannya. Misalnya seperti contohnya saya melakukan banyak research tentang walkability ya. Jadi kita melihat bagaimana user experience ya di dalam penataan suatu koridor jalan misalnya. Jadi kita bisa mengambil salah satu aspek dari apa yang disampaikan. Nah, beliaunya tidak men-share eh, apa namanya dia tidak men-share
Materi.
slide-nya karena mungkin gambar-gambarnya itu banyak yang copyright. Beliau mengambil dari sumber lain yang ada copyright-nya sehingga beliau tidak berani untuk men-share. Tetapi harapan saya tadi semua sudah men-screenshot ya setiap setiap slide-nya sudah di-screenshot sehingga bisa dijadikan bagian dari eh, ya kalian bisa mendapatkan materinya ya,
Uh,
mendapatkan materinya. Mungkin begitu ya Pak Suban. Dan
iya,
kelihatannya direkord ya.
for your information, jadi untuk semua materi perkuliahan dalam 2 hari ini itu nanti akan ditayangkan di YouTube. Jadi
Oh.
oleh jurusan atau departemen akan ditayangkan di akunnya departemen.
Oke.
Oke.
Jadi apa namanya bisa di ini kan
Bisa
ya. Jadi
disimak lagi, bisa
ya
disimak lagi.
bisa disimak lagi. Dan tadi kelihatannya saya melihat di chat ada yang menuliskan bahwa dia itu membuat transkripnya dengan bantuan AI, tapi kok terus hilang ya? Siapa tadi yang sudah men-share transkripnya? Transkrip dari perkuliahannya. Tapi Pak Subhan, ini yang hari ini yang hadir kok malah sedikit ya, hanya 85 orang. Sementara
Holiday.
sementara yang hari Rabu itu 120. Jadi ini banyak yang absen gitu. Mungkin karena libur, tetapi alhamdulillah ini kan hari ini kan kita hanya sebentar ya, hanya 1 jam ya.
Ah,
Mungkin ada yang mau
mm,
ditanyakan.
silakan. Putu para merta.
Nah, itu ada silahkan.
Silakan Putu.
Halo, selamat pagi Prof. Jenny dan Pak Subhan. Terima kasih atas
Ya,
kesempatannya. Sebelum tadi saya mau bertanya pas ada profesor, cuman baru kepikiran pas penutupan tadi. Jadi saya eh, pengen tahu pandangan apa namanya profesor yang tadi sih sebenarnya. Cuman
Mhm.
em, ini juga pertanyaan yang dari kemarin tuh saya belum nemu titik tengahnya gitu. Kayak gimana cara preservasi atau preserve eh, identitas kultural dari atau historikal dari sebuah em, lingkungan urban dan tapi juga membiarkan kayak arus-arus modernisasi itu tetap masuk di developmentnya. Itu saya masih bingung cara nengahinnya itu kayak gimana, Pak. Prof mungkin ada pandangannya. Makasih.
Mung-
ya silakan Bu Jenny. Bu
Oke,
Jenny.
mungkin Pak Sigmawan akan memberikan responnya terlebih dahulu, memberikan jawabannya terlebih dahulu. Itu tentang historik. Jadi bagaimana, jadi yang ditanyakan Putu Paramarta itu bagaimana kita tetap bisa melestarikan ya sejarah dari suatu kawasannya, kemudian sementara juga mengakomodasikan development yang sekarang gitu ya untuk kebutuhan sekarang gitu. Jadi titik tengahnya bagaimana supaya itu semuanya bisa bersatu gitu. Mungkin Pak Sikmawan
Iya,
akan
Bu Yeni.
memberikan pandangannya.
Kalau
Monggo.
singkatnya aja Bu Yeni ya. Singkatnya kalau dari materi ADU 1 itu ada di meskipun tidak secara khusus ya, tapi terlintas itu ada di materi pekan ke-9 Bu terkait dengan pelestarian kawasan. Ya. Kemudian lebih khusus lagi itu nanti kan di ADU 2 Bu terkait dengan
Iya, iya, iya.
revitalisasi apa
Uh,
reuse ya apa
ya, adaptive reuse,
adaptive
adaptive
reuse
reuse.
ya, adaptive reuse gitu.
Uh,
Jadi memang nanti lebih
Mhm.
khusus lagi di ADU 2, Bu. Itu
Iya,
uh,
sebenarnya satu satu mata kuliah sendiri tuh.
iya, iya,
iya.
Itu
Jadi
aja, Bu.
mungkin Pak Subat mau menambahkan.
iya. Kalau saya mau nambahkan, Putu, where are you, Putu?
Foto bisa dinyalakan. Nah,
Nah, jadi sebenarnya banyak ya, banyak caranya. Nggak usah khawatir,
Ketua kelas
tergantung
saya ini, Bu.
permasalahannya, tergantung permasalahannya.
Ketua kelas
Eh,
saya diangkat
Tadi
ini.
seperti disampaikan oleh Pak Sipawan, ada tentang adaptive reuse, ada revitalisasi, ada tentang apa namanya kemarin renewable urban renewal dan sebagainya, atau tergantung permasalahan dan tergantung sebesar apa historisnya. Jadi harus tetap ada kajian dulu untuk historisnya, kemudian untuk fungsi barunya. Jadi mau ditakar mana yang lebih penting, mana yang ini itu nanti disandingkan dan metodenya apa gitu. Jadi itu tergantung permasalahannya juga ya. Kalau dalam secara umum mahasiswa kalau saya pribadi selalu mengatakan ketika kita merancang di suatu lingkungan yang sudah eksis, kita bisa memilih antara konteks atau kontras gitu ya. Itu yang paling mudah ya, yang paling simpel. Tapi tetap harus ditakar sebenarnya kualitas sejarahnya. Ada yang bilang 9 item, ada yang macam-macam ya tentang kualitas itunya, lingkungannya, ada kerusakan atau tidak, kemunduran dan sebagainya. Nanti baru ditentukan langkah selanjutnya apa. Begitu, Putu.
mungkin sudah terjawab atau ada yang dimaksud oleh Putu mungkin
Di
lebih
mana?
dari
Kira-kira
itu
di mana?
atau
Di Bali ya?
bagaimana? Jadi apakah karena begini kan kan intinya itu sepertinya Putu mempertanyakan bagaimana old and new-nya ya. Jadi bagaimana
Before
yang
after.
lama dan yang baru bisa berdampingan kan gitu ya. Jadi bagaimana? Jadi belum tentu yang baru itu kemudian menggunakan bangunan yang lama kan gitu kan? Bisa jadi dia adalah memang membangun yang baru ya. Kalau misalnya menggunakan bangunan yang lama untuk kegiatan yang baru itu adaptive reuse. Di Indonesia adaptive reuse itu lagi rame sekarang ini diterapkan ya. Tapi di luar negeri itu dari zamannya saya kuliah 20 lebih tahun yang lalu itu sudah pakai adaptive reuse itu sudah diterapkan gitu. Tapi di kita baru tahun-tahun belakangan ini mulai gitu ya. Jadi kalau di sana memang bagaimana, tapi mereka tetap membangun bangunan-bangunan baru. Ya, jadi bangunan-bangunan yang eh, modern gitu ya, itu memang bisa kompatibel dengan bangunan-bangunan yang lama. Nah, ini mereka melakukan riset terlebih dahulu ya. Tapi cara mendekatinya kan bisa seperti yang disampaikan Pak Suban, bisa dengan apa namanya kontras ya, kemudian dengan berbagai macam cara gitu kan ada beberapa metodenya ya. Karena sudah diajarkan juga ya Pak Subhan ya. Ya, jadi ada beberapa metode yang bisa digunakan gitu ya. Tetapi kalau nilai-nilainya ya tetap harus dikaji, harus di research dulu gitu nilai-nilai apa yang akan dipertahankan. Saya punya contoh satu bangunan yang luar biasa ya. Di Sydney itu di tengah kota ada bangunan yang namanya Queen Victoria Building. Queen Victoria Building ini dibangun sekitar tahun 1850 dan eksis sampai sekarang. Dan itu bangunannya itu modelnya sangat-sangat ini ya, sangat kayak UK di tahun itu ya. Nah, tetapi kita bisa melihat mereka itu kan berapa lantai, saya lupa lantainya. Lantai yang bawah sendiri itu mereka sambungkan ke basement. Jadi mereka membangun baru. Tapi benar-benar penampilannya itu persis sama dengan yang lama. Kemudian, yaitu mereka kemudian membuat jalan di bawah underground ya, jalan di underground untuk nyebrang ke blok berikutnya, nyebrang lagi ke blok berikutnya. Jadi kita hanya jalan di bawah itu kita nongol sudah di blok yang lain, nongol lagi sudah di blok yang lain, dan blok-blok yang baru itu semuanya bangunan modern gitu ya. Dan itu ketika kompleksnya itu kita lihat itu benar-benar match. Jadi itu juga buat saya amazing ya karena bagaimana arsitek-arsitek dan urban designernya mereka bisa menata seperti itu. Nah, tetapi yang saya tahu mereka memang modelnya tidak bisa single fighter. Jadi yang saya lihat dan saya perhatikan itu mereka adalah teamwork. Jadi di dalam mereka menata suatu kawasan, di situ ada beberapa orang arsiteknya, ada beberapa urban designernya, ada urban plannernya, ada urban transportation, ahli urban transportnya, dan sebagainya. Jadi itu dari berbagai ahli berkumpul menjadi satu, lalu mereka melakukan bersama-sama. Di kita itu seringkali single fighter gitu ya. Jadi mungkin ada orang jadi mungkin untuk penghematan biayanya ya. Jadi mungkin itu memang PR yang besar buat kita. Ya mungkin itu tambahannya. Mungkin ada yang ingin didiskusikan lagi Putu. Atau mungkin ada yang lain yang ingin apa menyampaikan
Silakan yang
juga
lain,
bergabung. Ya, tapi
ada yang mau
nanti akan
ditanyakan?
secara detailnya akan disampaikan di adu dua nanti. Jadi harap bersabar ya Putu. Ini kan masih adu satu. Adu dua lebih merangkum semua elemen-elemennya dan sebagainya untuk suatu ini apa namanya penataan di suatu kawasan.
Implementasinya.
Ya implementasi. Kalau yang sekarang kita berkenalan. Gitu. Mungkin
Oke,
yang
yang
lain.
lain sepertinya tidak ada lagi, Prof.
Kalau
Jenny.
tidak ada, kita tutup saja, Pak Subhan. Jangan lupa semua yang hadir di sini mengisi kehadiran di Siam. Siamnya sudah saya buka dan silakan diisi kehadirannya untuk semua adu ABCDE dan juga untuk lingkungan kawasan, lingkungan visual kawasan. Mungkin itu monggo ditutup Pak Subhan.
Oke, terima kasih Prof. Jenny
Ini
dan
juga
juga
pesertanya
Pak
ini Pak
Sigmawan.
Subhan. Pak Subhan.
Terima kasih juga untuk semua partisipan yang sudah hadir perkuliahan di hari libur ini. Mudah-mudahan nanti bermanfaat. Kemudian nanti materinya akan di-share di YouTube. Proses editing tentu saja. Eh, kita tunggu saja nanti dari pengajaran untuk menginformasikan. Nah, mungkin akan saya share di grup ADU. Terima kasih, selamat pagi, selamat berlibur. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima
Terima
kasih
kasih.
Pak Subhan. Terima
Absennya
kasih.
jam
Oh,
10.20.
oh, ya saya rubah sebenarnya. Ya udah kalau jam 10.20 berakhir di jam 12 ya. Jadi jangan
Oke,
lupa ya. Nanti saya rubah coba. Oke. Ya. Terima kasih ya sudah
terima
pada hadir
kasih
di hari
semuanya.
liburnya.
Terima
Terima
kasih.
kasih Pak Sikmawan,
Yuk,
Pak
yuk,
Suban,
terima
terima
kasih.
Ya,
kasih yang
sama-sama
sudah
Bu. Terima
menjadi
kasih semuanya.
moderator. Ya.
Dadah.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam.